I did that with my coffee mug. That's how out of it I am. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I think we could go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call our September County Council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on our agenda is our auditor's financial report.
Okay, it's in the packet and on the screen here. We began 2022 with a general fund cash balance of $15,823,611. When you add in the 2022 projected miscellaneous revenue, property taxes or net property taxes, and deduct the estimated circuit breaker from the DLGF, our total funds available were $68,694,807. Now, when we deduct the encumbrances, the 2022 budget, the minimum balance, and add back in the anticipated 2% unused budget, our beginning net balance when the year started was $3,990,029. So far this year, we've approved additional appropriations of $56,336, and there are $67,913 of additional appropriations for the general fund for this meeting. When we deduct the miscellaneous expenditures, our available funds right now, the general fund, are $3,900,269. The next page on the report is the general fund revenue. And of course, property taxes, we don't collect. Nothing is distributed into the fund in the month of August. So that number is a little deceptive as far as what we are at. We're going to make the 100% almost assuredly. But anyway, we go down there. I'm not sure we really have that much in the month of August. One thing on 0291, just notice that. What's got the Public Defender Commission. There is some other things. It is all state and local public safety reimbursements from, basically from the state. That is a little bit more than the Public Defender Commission, but it's where the $5,000 is not Public Defender. And the other revenues are coming in about as what we would anticipate this time of year. And we get to the end of the day here, we have 62% of the revenue for the year has been collected when we're 2/3 of the way through the year. The next page are the fund balances. The general fund, we're at $11.2 million cash at the end of August. and we usually obviously spend more than what we receive each year, or each month, with the exception of the settlement months. I just had 1175 is the Misdemeanor Fund, just to show you that we do have a couple of appropriations from that fund from Community Corrections and the Sheriff today, and we did receive the $95,000, $96,000, so that is in the bank. So that's where the appropriations are coming from. Let's see, moving down to 4710, the health insurance. We did receive about $150,000 more in receipts than what we paid out, so we are just a little bit shy of $10 million in the health insurance fund balance. And I think that that's all I had on my funds. Yes, so if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Bob? Okay. Jennifer, Treasurer's Report.
Good morning. I believe the report was in your packet this time. For the month of August, we earned interest of $339,318.95. The average interest rate is 2.58%. This is a Fed funds of 2.5 plus our 10 basis points at our primary bank. This is the highest the rate's been in, the last time it was this same 2.6 was the end of 2018, but before that it had been at least 20-some years. So we are at a peak of where we've been, and in 2019 our interest for the general fund was $1.3 million. I projected $945,000 as the new estimate back when you did the budgets a few weeks ago, but that is still very conservative. I'm thinking it's going to be 1.2-ish. So looking at the next page, then you can see that you moved beyond that one. Yeah, as I say, you could see the difference there in what we were earning in the at the bank. And then for the distribution of funds, I don't believe I had anything to report there. We are at 70% of the year past and about 90% collected. So again, I'm projecting it to come in even higher than what I originally estimated. So that's all I had, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Jennifer? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next, we have public comment about any agenda items, and just to be clear, that's specifically about any of our agenda items coming up. We will be having a public hearing here immediately following that about the Fairfield Township trustee, but are there any members of the public that would like to make comment about any agenda items? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on into the public hearing concerning the Fairfield Township trustee, and I will let Doug introduce that topic.
So this hearing is related to what's known as the removal statute. It's IC 5-8-1-35. That statute provides that a public official can be removed by a court in the case of township trustee for charging and collecting illegal fees, refusing or neglecting to perform the official duties of the office, and or personal use of township funds. What the General Assembly did earlier this year, was expand the method to get to court under the removal statute. The removal statute itself has been in place since 1897. But what the General Assembly did specifically is added a process that could be initiated by a township resolution. It has 3 stages: the township resolution, the commission, 4 stages: township resolution, commissioner's resolution, council resolution, and then on to court. And the first 2 stages have already happened. Fairfield's resolution alleged generally that the trustee refused or neglected to perform her official duties. Specifically, it got into 2 instances where she failed to respond to requests for records or with incomplete records. That moved it on to the commissioners. And I think that resolution's in your packet. But of those 3 broad buckets, they found credible evidence for 2 of them, which was the refusing or neglecting to perform official duties of the office and personal use of township funds. Nothing was presented in terms of charging or collecting illegal fees. Where you are now is the public hearing step of your process. You're not required, and really you can't take any action yourself on this today. It's just about having the public hearing. After the public hearing, if you wanted to move forward, you have to wait at least 10 days to adopt a resolution. And your resolution has to have the same basis for removal as the commissioners. So the commissioners had some flexibility in terms of assessing the reasons or the need. You're kind of locked into whether or not you agree with their determination. And if you did move forward with the resolution, it would require 5 votes from the council, so not the normal 4-vote majority, but it'd take 5 of the 7 of you. There's no particular guidance in the statute for what the public hearing has to look like, other than that it's required. I would suggest that you ask people testifying to identify themselves, indicate maybe up front whether they support or oppose removal, and if they support removal, focus on those 2 big buckets, the duties neglected or refused to perform, or personal use of township funds, because those are what were identified by the commissioners. And if you don't mind, and if you tell me not to, I won't, but I'd appreciate the freedom to interject with some questions myself, just because there's some points raised in the commissioner's resolution. I just want to make sure you hear about them if the people testifying have any information on it. And then, of course, you all are free to ask questions, too.
Okay, council, are we clear? Are we good with that kind of outline of procedure?
Yes.
Okay. I've got consent. We'll move forward with that. So if we could have folks come up and present for or against, and then we will allow for some questioning from council and from our attorney.
And if you could hit the button, there's, make sure that's on, and I think there's a sign-up sheet.
Oh, okay. Do I include my address? Okay. I also want to make sure you got Kelly Stump's testimony. I think she emailed it. All right, great. All right, my name is Monica Casanova. I felt compelled to run for the Fairfield Township Trustee office after reading about what was happening at the office. I was invited to join the board, and I agreed willingly because I wanted to learn more about the township, and I wanted to serve my community. I had hoped that what I had been reading in the press was hyperbolic, but I soon learned that this was not the case. Since being appointed to the board at the beginning of the year, financial records have been provided by the trustee only when specifically requested, and then in a piecemeal fashion. Credit card statements without itemized receipts, for instance, or explanation as to the charges. There is never an account for anything that the trustee does. No executive report provided to the board. No budget has been submitted to the State Board of Accounts since 2019, the first year that Trustee Coles took office. Routine questions about the township are dismissed by the trustee as irrelevant and out of the jurisdiction of the board, despite the board being the fiscal body of the township. Questions are seen as accusations, and any official request for documentation has to be done through public record request, and those records can only be viewed at the township office with the monitor present. In fact, the Journal and Courier had to resort to suing the township office for release of what ought to be public information. These actions are not becoming of a public official whose duty it is to be accountable to the public, to us. Further, this disregard for standards and rules are exemplified by Trustee Cole's violation of the township's own credit card policy, which establishes that the credit line on the card at $5,000, something Trustee Cole had not heeded. See the Journal and Courier's article dated March 17, 2022, which chronicles Trustee Cole's credit card charges totaling $113,259.42 on the township's credit cards since taking office in 2019. In contrast to the previous trustee who charged the township $34,768.01 over her 8 years in office. Furthermore, the credit card policy states that any credit card issued to the trustee and/or authorized employee must be used for business purposes only. The trustee is responsible for receiving, printing, and retaining all receipts related to purchases made on the township credit card. If a receipt is lost, a written description of the items and cost of the purchase must be maintained with each monthly credit card bill. Transactions are accessible in accordance with the Public Records Law. That's the policy. The high cost charges and late fees incurred to the township's credit card that we have seen demonstrate an egregious disregard for the common good and an almost exclusive focus on the trustee's personal gain. See charges of thousands of dollars to things such as a Tony Robbins course, eating out, nail salons, massages, exercise equipment, which was then stored at home. I believe this township and community deserve better, and I urge you to vote to remove Trustee Coles. Thank you so much.
Ms. Casanova?
Yes.
I just want to go through some of the things in the Commissioner's resolution and see, I mean, you alluded to some of them. Do you have any particular knowledge of the filing or non-filing of the budget since 2019?
It's viewable within the State Board of Accounts on Gateway.
Okay, and you've taken a look and
I
it
have
wasn't there?
taken a look, yes.
Okay, and then do you have any information about personal use of township funds? The ones identified in the Commissioner's resolution was purchase of a fox stole, purchase of a comforter for family members, lawn and garden supplies for personal use, personal meals, and spa treatment.
Yes, those were also viewable in the credit card statements.
Okay. And you requested, that gets into another one, you'd requested, or I don't know what, you described, I believe, at the last hearing, your public records request. Could you
Yes.
tell generally what you requested? And I know there was a lot of hoops you had to jump through to see them. I'm not sure that's particularly relevant more than what you've already said.
Okay.
But what you asked for, and if there was anything you were unable to see or they didn't provide.
So I've requested credit card statements, bank statements, outgoing checks, itemized receipts. The only thing I have not seen to this date have been the itemized receipts.
Okay. And I think the Township Board's resolution, they'd asked for 36 months' worth of bank accounts and credit card statements. And I want to say they only got 3 months of maybe the credit card, and somebody else from the board can probably talk to that. But do you know if those additional months have ever been obtained and provided?
For the most part, we've seen most of those credit card statements. I think some are missing. Am I incorrect in that?
Okay, well, I can
Okay.
ask them. All right. And there was a mention of a Rural King incident. You might not be the best person to talk about this. Do you know anything about that?
I was not on the board at that time, but I have seen the receipts for that.
Okay. And then, well, I think that's all I have myself.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
Got a question, Monica. All these spending and charging doesn't sound like township needs, but anyway, so are these bills paid for now? I mean, you went ahead and paid them? Or are they pending?
The bills are paid for. These are old charges. There
Right.
are some outstanding contracts that I know that have, these are landscaping contracts that are outstanding, have not been paid for.
So all the the stole, the fox stole and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
those are old charges.
And they've been paid for?
They've been paid for
By the count, by the?
by the township, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Hi, I'm Perry Snare. I'm the board president presently. I've been on the board since the beginning in 2019, or when I got elected, and right off the bat, I was right along with her, thought she did a good job, but then she did some things in July that I started questioning some of the things. And then at the end of 2019, because we didn't give her a raise that she thought she deserved, she bought a brand-new pickup truck from down by Indy. She got a good price for it. She paid $35,000 for a brand-new pickup truck, so that was a great deal. Then she also, as Doug alluded to, she bought one trailer at Rural King, and then she bought another one when she couldn't get the one at Rural King. They had one up at Monticello, and she couldn't get it, so she tried to get the money back from that, and that was kind of a crazy deal. I think she tried to get it back on her personal or whatever, and she couldn't, so we got in on it, and it was a little bit on the crazy side with that. But then she ended up buying a trailer down by Wheatfield, Indiana, so she couldn't buy one here in Tippecanoe County and give it to our people here that we should be doing. So, you know, that was a thing. And then the one thing that I want to state to start with, and I should have done this, we as elected officials, in a sense, are held to a higher standard than the rest of people. We are here to help and assist people. And that's my personal goal is, that's why I got on the board. I was asked to join also. I didn't run to start with. And at a special session, they elected me to be on the board. So then I ran and I got elected. But we're here to help people in the community. And this isn't happening. We've tried to get stuff, and she won't give it. I asked for all the lawyers that we've had since inception and how much they're getting paid and how much we're paying them and what they represent. And I didn't get that. I requested that. You got to fill out a form to do it. And I filled out 3 different forms to get stuff, and I have gotten some stuff, but not what I requested. So it's just different things. She went up to Kankakee and bought $900 worth of flowers. It was supposed to be for the cemetery. Why to go to Kankakee? She went there twice, 2 different times to get stuff. And we have pictures, and I should have sent them to you, but I didn't. So it's just not helping the community, not take care of the community, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So basically, that's about what I have. And I also gave you that letter for Kelly Stump. Do you need me? You don't need me to read that, do you? Okay. So basically, that's about all I have.
All right. Can you tell me about the budget and whether it got filed or not with the State Board of Accounts and what that was all about?
That was something in 2019, we went along and submitted a budget, and she went along with that. The next year, she gave us a budget, and we didn't like it, so we submitted one back to her, so she didn't submit one. And as it goes, that if I don't know if it's in any of the organizations or groups in the state, you don't have to submit a budget. It'll fall back on the budget before. So she did that, and we found out through help from another trustee in the Tippecanoe County that we could do a revision of it, and we was able to do that. We submitted a budget ourselves, and we zeroed out her rainy day fund and lowered her cemetery fund. So we was able to do that. So then, when she does not submit a budget, I'm sure you all understand, you guys know that you don't get the levy taxes for that. So we lost several $1,000s from that. So Fairfield Township lost, plus, and I'm sorry this to interject this, the first year she was in office, she went along with us, and we've always given the fire department in Lafayette $100,000 for whatever they want to do. After that, after the 2019, she refuses to do that also. And each year, we've made a resolution to do that, and she won't do that.
And what can you tell us, if anything, about whether or not she made personal use of township funds?
Other than what we see, the little records that we get, we have personal, that she has done that. And
what sorts of things?
well, like you said, the shoal and the stuff, and then she also, and I don't know if this was personal use or what it was, but I don't know if she rented or purchased a $150 bunny suit at Easter, and she purchased it. Okay, she purchased the bunny suit, and then also early on, one of her, and I should have documented this, but I didn't, she purchased flowers from one of her friends that was having financial trouble. Instead of giving money to the fire department, she gave them flowers. So that's, in a sense, personal use too, so.
And then what sorts of documents have you tried to get and not been able to get?
Basically, the only one I haven't gotten, I asked for the financials for checks and all the receipts. She did give us receipts back in 2019 up till July, and they was all redacted. And then we also asked for financial assistance for the citizens that we take care of, and she did give that to us, and it was redacted. And I understand that. I do not want anybody's names. That's something that no one needs to know. But, I asked for that. We did finally get that. Like I said, I asked for the lawyers, and I never have gotten that.
All right, thanks.
Okay, any questions from council?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Tricia Fogelman, and I was the office manager at Fairfield Township. I worked there from October 2020 till the end of July 2021. I did send you guys an email late yesterday afternoon. I apologize that it was so late, but I did procrastinate. No offense to the county council, but I really didn't want to be here today. Again, I had to take personal time from my job and relieve events I would rather move past. But it's important for me to be here to stand up and request that Fairfield Township trustee Talitha Coles be removed from office as soon as possible. To put everything in a few minutes' time is difficult, as nearly every day of the 10 months I spent there, some sort of oddity happened, things I witnessed firsthand. So much went on that was wrong that I could stand in front of you for hours, but I'll try to keep it to a few subjects. The first thing I would like to talk about again are the allegations that former employees destroyed records. She said this to me about former staff as well. So if this was going on for years, why is she only looking for those receipts when faced with removal from office? I am not a disgruntled employee. I left rather than be complicit in her activities. Shredding documents is an actionable offense, and if there was any evidence that this happened, we would be under investigation. I am not a disgruntled employee. I am a whistleblower, and I gain nothing by this. Next, I would like to address the meeting with Chief Doyle. I sent you copies of my notes. During the meeting, he told her what he would be using the requested monies on, and if he could not get some of the funds from her, he would have to look for other sources. She told him she would give him the $100,000 in the fall. When she left, she turned to me and said she wasn't giving him a dime. As long as I was there, she did not compensate the Lafayette Fire Department for fire protection for the unincorporated areas of Fairfield Township. This is the same meeting that she offered him a helicopter. Another point is about the PERF fund that is for public employees. Those that were there during the former trustee administration and also worked for Talitha had their PERF contributions made. She did not make an account for myself or the other staff that I worked with. Why is she contributing to the retirement fund? Why is she not contributing to the retirement fund for employees and only for herself? And I sent you a receipt of that as well. Talitha Coles directed me to purchase materials for her reelection campaign. Among them were fans and coasters with her name and picture, as well as a table at the Mosey, which she did not attend at a single time, even though she purchased a table for the entire 2021 summer season. She gave me the township credit card to purchase these items. Some of these things were to decorate the table for the Mosey, and they had her campaign slogan, "Kindness Matters." When I first started in October 2020, I would see her at the office nearly every day. Sometimes we did things together after work on a social basis as well. I accompanied her on shopping trips where things were purchased for the township legitimately with a township credit card and also not so legitimately. I saw her use the tax-exempt card for personal use, and in my first weeks there on a Menards trip, when I was purchasing a few things for myself, she handed it to me to use. This is the tax-exempt card. I didn't realize what was happening with it and what it was until afterwards, and then I was horrified. She offered it to me a couple of times after that, and I said no. In November, she started coming to the office less and less. She took what was to be a week vacation, which really turned out to be a month, in which she would come to the office periodically and on paydays to cut checks. But it became less and less. By February 2021, she was hardly in the office, and that extended until and through the end of July 2021. I knew I would see her on payday only because she would have to cut a check for herself. Throughout that spring, most of our communication was via phone and email. She was less than professional and not courteous as time went on. I don't think people realized how rarely she was doing her job. By the end of May, there were only 2 of us left in the office holding everything down. It was very stressful trying to do everything with the office, but it was almost more stressful when she was there because the behavior was erratic, and it was very brief. In addition, all of those months I saw her be very lackadaisical with credit card receipts. I didn't have anything to do with credit card receipts, nor did anyone else in the office. That was all Talitha. If she were in the truck that she was using as a personal vehicle, she would stuff receipts in her wallet or in the middle console of the truck. There was never any mileage log, and I was with her when she would fill the truck with gas and with the township credit card, but not track any of the personal mileage that she was using. And she did while I was with her. We went out and we had cocktails many times, even went to a friend of hers party during a Purdue game. There was never inventory of township assets that was kept in the office, and I could not find them on the hard drive. So there is no accounting for the things that are in the office, including art and decorations, which were purchased by the township and could easily walk away. The only inventory I ever saw was one I created for the cemetery. It was a maintenance log for some of the equipment there. Much has been made of the spa day that we had in November 2020. It's all true and shocking. I watched her monitor the front of the township offices with her phone to watch the board members not be able to enter the township offices. She thought it was funny to keep them outside. The first time I knew that she was using the township credit card for personal items was, I believe, at the beginning of December 2020 when she was purchasing things for the shelter house at Sell It Here on Creasy Avenue. She bought her daughter a pink comforter and herself socks and a fur stall, and I saw this with my own eyes. I sent you a picture of her wearing that stole too. She even mentioned some things about, oh, I'd given some lamps to the township, so it should all cancel out. I was very uncomfortable and wasn't sure what I should do. I thought the amounts were petty, and she could explain it away, so I did not sound any alarm to any authority, and I wouldn't have known who to tell at that point anyway. She mentioned to us in the spring on payday that she wanted to purchase some gym equipment and put it in the shed for our use. My coworker and I told her very emphatically that we did not need gym equipment, and that we would not work out in a windowless shed on our half-hour lunch. It was unnecessary. I really assumed that she had maybe purchased it for a couple $100 on Facebook Marketplace, as she was always doing, and it wasn't a big deal. When I saw the equipment being unloaded outside the township offices, I was shocked. These items were professional-type workout equipment. Some was put in the shed, some was left on the truck for weeks at a time, outside under a tarp at the cemetery, and some of it ended up in her house, which was taken out by ISP when they executed the search warrant this summer. When I found the check for $5,130, I was in a state of shock. I could not believe that she would spend that much taxpayer money on something so unnecessary when we were supposed to be helping the people of the township who were in need. Normally, when a vendor is paid, a folder is made with a 1099 from the vendor, and the check is written in triplicate. One goes to the vendor, one goes in the folder, and one goes to the auditors. As of July 2021, the person that the check was made to did not have a 1099 or an itemized statement or invoice as required by state code. This is when I knew things were very, very wrong, and I could no longer keep silent. And that's when I contacted the State Board of Accounts. I spent that summer holding down the fort with one other employee, and while I was looking for another job, and I walked out on the last day of July 2021. I'm not surprised that she could not find receipts for her spending. Everything was haphazard, from her stuffing her wallets with receipts, or the console of the truck, or her desk, which was always a pile of mess. Every inch of storage space in the office, her office, in the shed, the shelter house, and the cemetery buildings are full of her purchases. I know she only has a short time left in office, but this woman is capable of spending a lot of taxpayer dollars unnecessarily. I'm passionate about the township offices. I feel they do have the capacity to do so much good, and I love this community. We deserve someone who is trustworthy as trustee, and I'm asking you humbly to get her out of office as soon as possible and to hold a special session to vote on this rather than wait until your next meeting. People have said she is out of office soon. Why not let her finish out the last several months? Because I've seen firsthand the damage she can do in one afternoon. Between January 1, 2021, and when I left in July 2021, Ms. Coles had spent almost $70,000 of the rainy day fund. This fund is not to spend indiscriminately, but for emergencies. In July, she wrote a check for $5,627.97 to MasterCard, and $1,339.71 was from the rainy day fund. I would like to close that this is not enjoyable for me. It's been hard being public about this. There are more fun ways I can think of to spend my PTO on. I get absolutely nothing from this. There was no conspiracy with the board, who I did not know before I quit. As hard as this is, it's not as hard as the thought of just letting her get away with this. I was raised better than that. Thank you.
You touched on most of the items that I was interested in. There was a couple of personal use type allegations. Do you know anything about her use or not of money for personal meals?
Yes.
Okay, what can you say about that?
There were more than once that we went to the Linwood Tavern and she bought lunch, including after the meeting with Chief Doyle. That's where we went.
All right, and I think you talked about, lawn and garden supplies. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, she would go to, I saw Menards a lot and Home Depot. And yes, she bought stuff for her house and her yard there, including like some seeds for herbs that they're not going to have at the cemetery. But again, these were petty amounts, and I wouldn't have known who to bring it up to at that time anyway. Last time we were at Menards, we left with 4 shopping carts of merchandise. And when we went to Home Depot, one time, it was in December, she saw these big poinsettias that she liked, and for the cemetery. And they were put out to the cemetery, at least most of them, but she would go in and say, I want every one that you have, including in the stockroom. So she had, employees grabbing every single one, and that's how it is. The money is just spent like this. That's why it's urgent.
And then you did there was one I wanted to go back. You mentioned a check for $5,132. I just want to make sure, was that related to the workout equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you'd mentioned.
I sent a copy of that with the email too, of that particular check. That was really when everything changed for me, because it was just so egregious.
And then the records that I think you said she made an accusation of shredding or previous employees, or maybe you destroying records. What sorts of records were missing, presumably, that she was trying to blame on others?
When she talked about the previous staff that had been there, and there were like 13 or 14 office people that circulated in and out of there, and before I started, she was kind of vague, but she said that everything that the previous trustee was setting her up to fail, and she was having her current staff shred documents, and I'm not sure what those are. But since these receipts are missing, she has made just a general statement that she doesn't have them because previous employees had. I didn't have anything to do with the receipts. I didn't save them. I didn't touch them. The only thing I did, and I never wrote a check, but I did put the checks, with the invoice, things like that, and mail them out. So that's how I saw some of the checks towards the end. I refused to write checks, which is because she wanted to promote me to deputy, and I said I would refuse to write checks because I had a bad feeling.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
Thank you. I know I threw
Thank
a
you.
lot at you.
Okay, thank you. Who is next?
I'm Rocky Hessian. I'm the secretary for the board, have been since the election. And I would like to comment one thing about what Tricia just talked about. One of the things that she told me was that there was no control of information. You're supposed to have safety procedures. You guys have a check and balance of who does what and how is it accomplished. The employees were required to give Talitha their passwords, so that if she wanted to, she could log in and be one of them. And so now, whether she did it or not is immaterial. If you want security in what your system is supposed to do, you make sure that only those people can log in as themselves. And so that's kind of, when I heard that from her, I was just like, this is crazy. I sent you a 2-page to everybody. I've done this a couple different times, and so forgive me for getting not necessarily bored, just not know where to start. When I wrote the resolution for township, I looked at it a couple different times. There were 7 different versions. Eventually, oh no, that doesn't work, let's try again, let's do this again. And I finally reread the laws, and I am of the opinion that the items that we're citing and that you have cited are things that have been in standing for a long time as far as the duties of the township trustee. And therefore, the only thing that changed is a new system of bringing it about. Everything else, you had to go to somebody else to get them to instigate or start a procedure. This is the first time that we as a township could do a resolution and proceed with it, as far as I understand. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but it was the most viable and most visible means of us to get something started. And that's why, outside of the fact that I saw a lot of public people coming up and saying, this needs to be done. Give me focus. What am I supposed to talk about again?
Broad categories are personal use of township funds and sort of abdication of duties.
Okay.
And so I'm happy to give you a prompt, and that'll save me from asking you questions later, probably. So under the personal use of township funds section of the Commissioner's resolution, they've listed purchase of a fox stole, comforter for a family member, use of lawn and garden supplies, personal meals, spa treatment, and I think Ms. Fogelman addressed most of that, but what can you speak to in those terms?
Other than the receipts, which I've seen, and the all of the, I made the personal request for information at the very beginning of the year, January 3rd, and for all of the credit card statements, all checking and savings account statements. That's what I wanted, and everything that goes with it. But the only thing I received the credit card statements from the Journal and Courier. I didn't get it from Talitha. I got my checking and savings account statements from Monica, not from Talitha. She hasn't given me anything. And there's a couple things missing. There's a couple months of credit card statements that were missing. Wait, stop, take that back. There were about 3 statements of the credit, 3 statements of the credit card and 1 or 2 statements from the checking and savings. But that was back in 2020. And my biggest concern was that COVID had hit, and we were looking at a financial situation of whether or not we had a checking account or a money market savings account that we had just opened. And I wanted to see if we just put $1 million in it. Is any of it gone? And it didn't shrink. What happened with it? And I was pleased. She gave me the records to show that, yes, it had not shrank. It is still maintaining. We're still getting interest. The alarming part of that interest was we were supposed to get a 1.5% interest on it. And within 2 months, it had dropped to 0.1% of interest. I don't think I would have agreed to going that route if we had known that that's what had happened. You know, but there was a guarantee, 1.5%. No, it didn't happen. Or it didn't stay that way anyway. As far as the events, the only thing I saw of an issue, which I spoke at the last meeting, was the Rule King. Because I went and talked to the personnel there at the store. I talked to the manager. There's 2 different managers, evidently, who control different parts of the store. And I had talked to the first one, who had only been there for about a month. And this was the beginning of March of 2020.
Kind of start from the beginning on that Rural King incident. I'm not sure the council members are familiar with the background.
Okay. We found out in February that she had purchased a truck and a trailer. And the receipts we got from that were from a dealership in Connersville for the truck, and the trailer was purchased in New Whiteland at a location there. And that was all invoices. It wasn't check or credit card. It was just that. Okay, that's fine. Then we got an email from Rule King, and it was sent to all 3 board members. Evidently, they had problems, and their account research security people, whoever they are in charge of that department, I don't want to give a label and misrepresent them, but they said, contact the board. You know, so they sent us an email explaining that they'd had issues, and they were trying to figure out whether or not this was a legitimate purchase. They had a purchase of a trailer December 31, 2019. She'd come in right before they were getting ready to close. She wanted to buy a trailer. And they didn't have one and said, we'll sell you one. It's up in Monticello. You'll have to go get it. Fine. They did the transaction. They purchased the trailer. Why is she buying a second trailer? You already made the purchase or did the invoice for the previous one from the new white one, and they close at 5 o'clock in the evening. It's New Year's Eve. You think they're sticking around? They're going to watch football games and have a great time for the rest of the couple days. No, they left. So I even checked. I said, did you close on New Year's Eve? She said, yeah, 4 o'clock. Okay, fine. Because I received a story from the trustee that she had left Rural King, gone down there, seen a trailer that she liked better, and purchased it. They weren't even open. And then, one of the reasons, and the reason that they contacted us was because they had requests from her to put it on a different credit card. I don't know what credit.
When you say put it on, do you mean buy it originally or credit it back?
Credit it back, sorry. Get a refund for the trailer because she decided she didn't need it. She had never gone up to Monticello to try to pick it up. The first time she went up there, evidently she came close to closing again. Monticello was already closed, and they couldn't confirm that she had already picked the trailer or not. So she left. So she came back again. And this time they had confirmed it, they wanted to refund it, but she went on a different credit card. They said they couldn't. There's only 2 ways they can give a refund. Back on the original card, I send you a check. Check takes a couple weeks, and it would be issued to the township. So she went away not getting it then. As a matter of fact, there it is, at the beginning of March, no refund had been issued. When word of this got through to the township that we had been down there, and she sent it to the lawyer who we had went down there and got a refund on that card that day. And that was in April. So that's the only thing of potential, if you will, that I know of personally. All the other instances were the people that worked there who saw what she did on a day-to-day basis. Mishandling of funds. Go ahead.
Oh, I think you were going the right direction. I was just sort of focused on, in your Fairfield resolution, there's one of the whereases, as of July 6, 2022, only 3 out of 36 months of credit card statements and 1 month of checking and savings account statements have been released by the trustee to the members of the board that requested them. So, as I understand it, I think I was confused. You didn't get them from her, but you've gotten most of them from other sources since then. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've got nothing. Those are the only things I got from her, and that was back in 2020 when we were dealing with COVID.
Okay.
So, and I didn't realize I had to go find them, and they were not redacted. They had all the notations still on them and everything. That was great. Yeah, everything I've received has been from secondary sources.
And then while I'm interrupting you, I'll continue to do so with, what can you tell us about filing the budget or failing to file the budget?
Yeah. She requested on the first budget we dealt with in 1919, her salary was $55,000. She wanted an increase in salary to $69,000, which was a sizable chunk. I think we figured it out as about almost 26% raise. And we're going, no. Nobody gets a 26% raise. Come here, you're crazy. So we gave her a 1.9% increase, 26. It was to 56,045, I think it was, for the next year. And it stayed that way because she then proceeded to file this, didn't file another budget, so it just carried over. The first budget, she said, okay, that's fine. Second budget, we went through the process. We voted it. We approved it. Nothing happened. But we didn't know that. It wasn't until I started investigating in June, I think it was, and I found out that it had never been filed. And so I reported it to the board in July because we were getting ready to deal with the next budget. I wanted to see what, I was getting ready for that. It had not been filed. We gave her a little bit of grief for that, like, why shouldn't you? You should have done this. And so it accumulated. We had a meeting in October, which was darn near televised. Everybody recorded on that. And we filed another budget. We made changes. She was of the opinion that she should run the board. that she should call meetings, and she should take the minutes. When we had disagreements with things, she tried to take over my job, and I said, no, I'm the secretary, I do minutes. You know, you don't. And so we overruled her there. But very little of, we could do very little for the last number of years. Go back to that. We were concerned. The first year in the rainy day fund, she spent $96,000. The next year, she spent a little over $90,000. The next year after that, she spent $40,000. And it's like, you know, if this had gone to people who were dealing with COVID and had to have their mortgages paid for or utilities covered or something of this nature, that would be great, but that's not what happened. It was just whatever expenses, remodeling the office, doing whatever she wanted to do. And that's, when it was over $250,000 gone out of a fund that had $1.1 million in it to start with. When the final budget that we dealt with last year for '22, we realized that she probably wouldn't file this again. And so I spoke with DLGF, Frank Von Dorp, I think his name is, Fred, right, sorry. And I said, is there something we can do? He said, well, you don't have permission to get information right now. The only person that can get information from what we release is her. I said, if I file a resolution to give us access to this information, would you do that? He said, yes, we'd file it. So in November, we did a resolution for that purpose and sent it to him. He then put us on the list. When they released the 1782 report for us at the end of the year in November, they said, how can we then file a resolution zeroing the rainy day? And he agreed to that. And we made a couple other changes to a couple other funds. We didn't change any of the percentages, we just reduced the amount that she could use. The details of the report that I got from that time were interesting. In the 2 years prior to that, because of the lack of filing of the funds, it showed that we were not getting $117,000 what we should have gotten, whether it was from general fund or the fire fund. I don't understand that. Sorry. So that's how we got the rainy day zeroed out. We also zeroed out her lawyer fee. She made it clear that the lawyer that was hired, who came to the September 17, 2020 meeting, and he said that his duties were to represent Talitha and the township, but not the board. Normally, and prior to that, all lawyers were representing us as a whole. I can't remember why I was going that direction. But that everything was under her control. When we first started, she was telling us, don't ask the lawyer questions, ask me the questions, I'll ask the questions of the lawyer. She was trying to control the flow of information and the information that came back to us. Public inspections, yes, it was finally filed. So we zeroed that out, so she couldn't do any more damage to that. But we zeroed the lawyer fund out too, because we knew she was abusing it. In one of the funds, and that was specifically for the lawyer fund, there was an assistance, in the assistance fund, there was a section for legalities. We left that intact so she had something to work with for whatever she had to deal with in that respect. What else is there? Let me look at that real quick. Oh yeah, that was the startling thing. This is not part of the original one. We found out that I went through the records and realized that she'd only been to four of the 14 board meetings in 2021. That includes the ones that were on remote. Every time we would send her an invitation and the way to log in and everything like that. We had learned not to let her have that. In February, she was in control of the Zoom meeting that day, and she wanted certain things covered. Every time we tried to deviate from the flow, she would say, no, that's not on my agenda. It says, we have our own agenda. but it didn't matter. Once we got to the end of it, she terminated the meeting. And we know that because the message comes on the screen, terminated at the source. You know, that wasn't us, that was her. So, but two of us were still in the room, so technically our meeting was still in order. We recontacted Perry, who was in the hospital with COVID. And we didn't really do any action other than saying, when are we meeting next? Boom, that's it, and we adjourned. It has been an interesting journey. I have not held public office prior to this, and I got in here to see what I could do to help and what I could do and how the community worked and what did government do and all those questions that everybody asks when they go, what is this? And I've learned the negatives big time. How easy it is for somebody to manipulate a system or take control of a system if they want to. I've learned that you really have to study who you're voting for, that you really have to find out what they're about and what their record is, if you will. What else was there on that thing I want to say anything more about?
I think I've covered everything I needed on ours. I don't know if the
You guys got
council
any
has
questions for me? I listed the status of things. There was a short list of the things, basic things, where we were asking her questions at meetings, trying every time we could, but then she didn't show up for meetings and we couldn't. But passage of resolution, we gave her permission to give $100,000 to the Lafayette Fire Department in 2021. She then gave us a resolution at the end of December for $49,000. And we're going, we already covered this. We already voted this into place. Why is she doing this? And she had told me many times that she couldn't give us any, she would have to ask for permission to go for anything over $50,000. Well, why is she now giving us a resolution for $49,000? So we changed the number, made it $100,000, and sent it back to her with an understanding. I think the chief was on the Zoom meeting, Chief Doyle was on the meeting at the time. He said, yes, there's enough time for this to go through. So we sent it through, it never got through.
Go ahead, John.
Go.
I had one question, but I think I have two.
Okay.
Who was the attorney, and will he be here today to speak? I mean,
Well, I think they've gone through different attorneys, and that
Okay.
person wouldn't be, and I don't know about their present one.
okay. My question on the check refund that they received for, I believe, for the refund for the
Yeah.
trailer,
That was Wayne Sikowski.
that's what?
I know if I'm pronouncing it well. Wayne Sikowski?
Oh, I know him. Oh, okay,
He
well,
was
anyway.
You're talking about the, wait a
No,
minute,
the check refund that he went and picked up, where's that check?
talking Rule King?
Do where?
Is it Rule King?
No, Monticello he's talking about.
Monticello.
The trailer?
Yeah, the trailer.
Oh, it was never, he didn't have to go get a check.
I think the refund went back onto the township credit card.
Yes, it did, yes. Yeah, they didn't issue a check, that was just one of the options.
Okay, cool.
Okay, anything else?
Rocky, you said that you sent us an email to the county council?
Yeah.
I didn't see I didn't see it.
I love
Do you mind
Outlook.
sending that again? Because I would like to read it.
You want it?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I can get
Thank
guys to
you.
make copies.
You'll want to make copies.
I'm sorry about that.
I'll make copies.
All right.
That's the only one I've got, but I don't care, I can make more. Oh, excuse me, wait, page 2.
All right, thank you very much. Who is next?
Hi, my name is Bridget Hamilton, and I was also a former employee of the trustee. And my prepared remarks are very short. I now have some comments to make following some of the other discussion. As a former employee, I have 3 points to make. I both observed and was subjected to the trustees' incompetence, absenteeism, which Tricia has also referred to, which made it difficult for the office to do its job when questions would arise about how to handle a specific assistance situation. Kohl's was not available. There was gaslighting and basically just mendacity. The staff and therefore the township suffered from a lack of training. This was a discussion among staff at the time because it's like, she isn't training us on how to use these fairly sophisticated and I think well-designed software systems. When we contacted the managers of the software system, they said, well, when she first took office, she came and spent a day or two training the way we do with all the new trustees, so she should be able to train you. And she didn't want to spend the money for an additional session for the new employees that she hired after dismissing the former set of employees that she had inherited. So she really just didn't seem to care. I understand, as a couple other people have said, I understand the impulse to say, well, she's going to be gone in January, why go through all these shenanigans? But if she is not removed and she still has access to the township credit cards, I think that there is a real risk of further misappropriation of funds. Let me address this Rural King situation. It so happened that I was the person who first found out about it. Once again, Talitha was not in the office. A call came in that I picked up, and it was from Rural King, their operations manager. I had not realized that there was more lengthy time to talk, or I would have brought some records with me that I have that support all of this. So forgive me, I don't remember the operations person's name off the top of my head. It was Casey somebody. And I answered the phone and said, can I help you? Can I talk to the trustee? And I said, I'm sorry, she isn't here right now. Could we talk to the treasurer for the township? And I said, well, the office doesn't really have a treasurer. And I said, can you tell me what the situation is? Maybe I can, help you. So she described that at around 6 o'clock on New Year's Eve in 2019, Kohl's had come into their office and wanted to buy a trailer, and they did not have the trailer she was interested in on the lot in Lafayette. They checked around and they said, well, there's the model that you want up in Monticello. And so she decided to take that, and this was after she had purchased the trailer down in wherever it was, Whiting. So I have no idea why she wanted to buy the second trailer, but she did. And this call came in mid-February of 2020. And so I said, and Casey said, and she's now been coming in and being rude and demanding and wanting a refund. And we don't know whether we should give this refund. She's never picked up the trailer in Monticello, but she's asking for this refund, and it just doesn't sound right. And she talked a little more, and I agreed, it just didn't sound right. And so I said, let me ask you this. This is a trust fall. You don't know me, and I don't know you. Would you mind sending me a copy of the receipt? And she said, sure. And then I said, the people you need to speak with are the board. And so since I had the emails for the then board members, which are Perry and Rocky, and at the time, Steve Snyder. So she had those, and that's where I left it. I never heard anything more. I wondered whether Kohl's was trying to charge it back to a personal credit card, but I knew nothing. The only reason that I knew they had contacted the board was because I believe in March, Rocky called me and started asking some questions and then veered off into some tangents. So I knew that they had contacted the board, and that is all I knew until since I had heard nothing about the board trying to handle this potentially underhanded action on Coles's part, I finally was moved to talk to Monica Casanova as the new board member and say, I don't know if you know about this. And I gave her copies of the receipts. And lo and behold, magically, all of a sudden, the board began speaking about the Rural King incident a year and a half after it happened. A year and a half after they had learned, as I learned later in the press, that she had apparently tried to charge it back to a personal credit card, that they had gotten a lawyer involved. All of that was kept under wraps for a year and a half. The other thing that I found disturbing about the Rural King incident is that about a week after I had my conversation with Rural King was when and I don't remember the exact term for it, but trustees have to buy an public ad in the paper and list all of their finances and transactions, and then swear and affirm that these statements are true and correct. And under the capital outlays, I believe was the category, she listed the truck, about which she had bragged a lot in the office. Oh, I got the tinted windows, real tinted windows, not that film stuff. And she was very cock-a-hoop and bragged about pulling one over on the board before the end of the fiscal year. So I saw the listing for the truck and I saw the listing for the trailer, the more expensive trailer, from Whiting or where it was. I did not see the listing for the Rural King trailer, which, and I'm not a lawyer, but as of midnight on December 31st, 2019, the township owned a second trailer. And that did not appear on the sworn statement of the financial situation in the paper. And I do have copies of those records if at some point you want them. I reported the apparent discrepancy and potential perjury to the State Board of Accounts. And since they are very discreet, I have no idea what's happening with that. I do feel she has mismanaged not only the money, but her responsibilities to the community. As I said, she was there for less than 50% of normal business hours during the time that I was there.
What was your position and how long were you there?
I was there from October 2019 to March of 2020, and I was in charge of the Social Security rep program, where the township, for people who are deemed unable to responsibly handle their Social Security payments, the township has an account and receives that money, and then this is a bad word for it, but doles it out to the recipients, and often made out specifically to $50 to Kroger for groceries and so forth. And so I was, and their rent checks, their bus passes, their regular living expenses. And I ran that program, and there were some very irresponsible things that happened in connection with her, in connection with that program. And when the time came where I felt I could no longer work there, in part because of the lack of training, because I had fiscal fiduciary responsibilities, and she was not providing the training for me to make sure that I was keeping all those records correctly. And so I decided I would leave. There was some discussion with Social Security, and Janet Winters runs their program, and she is just dynamite. And she said, well, if you're leaving, you need to let the clients know and see if they want to stay with the township or if they want to go some Area 4, a couple of Area 4 organizations also do that. And so I let the clients know, and they all opted to go with Area 4 organizations because they had had very bad experiences with Talitha.
And just sort of focusing on what the commissioner's agenda had, or commissioner's resolution had identified, do you, you talked about the Rural King stuff. Do you have any knowledge of personal use of township funds by Ms. Coles that?
No, I do not have the direct
Okay.
type of information that Tricia had.
That's fine, I just want to make sure.
I
set
certainly
these.
don't question her assessments.
Any questions from council? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is
Morning.
Vicki Weisty. I also am a former employee of the township. Bridget was there when I arrived in late 2019, and she left about a month after I did in early 2020. Doug, I'm sorry, I can't really speak to the misappropriation of personal funds. I'm just here to say something about what the vital role of the township is. From my perspective now as a volunteer at Lafayette Urban Ministry in its financial assistance program. This is very similar to the township assistance program, except that we have a lot less bureaucracy and we cut people checks the day they come in. But we can't nearly cover people's shortfalls. When we see people that come in with a Duke bill that's $500 in arrears, we cannot help them clear all of that. We can give them a little bit, and then we send them off to the other nonprofits in the area to try to scrape together the rest of it. For the last year, it has been apparent to me that sending people to the trustee's office has been a waste of their time, because what I'm hearing from my clients is that they simply aren't getting the help they need to apply for the help that they need. And that's been the case for several years now. With the end of pandemic-related emergency funding, such as the child tax credit, people who are living on the margins are in even greater danger of having their utilities turned off and being evicted from their housing. LUM and other nonprofits depend on government public agencies to perform their statutory duties so that our fellow citizens and neighbors can pull their lives together. When I was the township employee, I worked as a case investigator. That meant that I helped people applying for assistance, which meant meeting a list of about 14 or 15 requirements, and that was pretty onerous for a lot of people who didn't, for instance, have their birth certificates. I'm just going to tell you about one case which cemented my decision to leave. A young woman with 2 children under the age of 2, this was in December, it was right before Christmas. She needed help making her rent for December, so she was already on the knife's edge. She met all the requirements. I fully investigated her case. I did the house inspection, everything. Nevertheless, Talitha denied her request because she told me she was certain that there was a boyfriend in the picture. There was no proof of this in the file, none. But Talitha was insistent that this young mother and her 2 babies could just go to the shelter right before Christmas. So for me, that was the last straw. That wasn't the kind of public administration I wanted to be a part of, and frankly, it was shameful. And it wasn't the only time that cases were handled in that kind of way. And that's all I have to say. Okay?
Yeah, I think, and you confirmed you don't have any particular knowledge of the personal misuse of funds, and on the neglect of duties, sounds like the poor relief duties were not being carried out. So anyway, just explaining why I'm not asking you a bunch of questions, because you've
That's
already made
okay.
clear what your role was.
I can tell you that she did do things like, she bought each member of the staff a potted orchid for morale, which I thought was nice, but I also assumed she had done that with her personal funds, and now it's pretty obvious that it wasn't. After the office had been renovated before I arrived, but again, because Talitha wasn't in the office, she didn't even know what was in the new cabinetry. So I did an inventory of all the office supplies so that everybody would know what we had. Again, she had been in office, didn't it? Okay. Yeah, so she'd been in office for over a year, and there were basic office functions like supply ordering that just were not taking place. And we wanted to help her. I mean, Bridget and Erica Beimel and I, we wanted to help her, and we kept saying to her, we want to help you pull all of these things together, but she didn't want our help. She just wanted us to carry out these tasks, even though we didn't have the training for it. I, too, lacked proper training on the software, but she insisted that I had been trained. So I can attest to everything that Bridget said. Bridget told me about the truck and the trailer. Bridget told me that she did not feel comfortable exercising the responsibilities of her office because she did not know how to work the software for the representative payee duties. And so the level of disorganization and lack of leadership was really apparent. And honestly, I took the job to be of help, and I went to Lum instead, where I feel I am of help. But Lum can't do it by itself. So that's the reason, I think, to get rid of her now. Anything else?
Any questions from council?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Finnegan. I am not part of the Fairfield Township Board in any way other than as someone who lives in Fairfield Township. And I would have to speak in support of this resolution because the overwhelming thing we're seeing right here is that the people in the township are not having their services. There are certain, we all know there's obligations that come with elected office, and government employees must move it to follow through their steps. You all do. I know most of you, you've all been on the council for a long time or have been part of office. And to me, it's very clear the things that need to be done to bring us in compliance not only with the state, but I think with the expectations of the people who live in the township. We have a right as township citizens to expect that the offices be open and be available, and that they respond to questions. At the hearing in July, I attended that, and at that time Ms. Cole's attorney was there, and issues was raised about not turning in receipts, etc., things like that. And I specifically asked her attorney if those documents would be turned into the county council as had been requested. And she assured me they all would be, and as you can hear from the hearing, it was not done. If we can't take someone's word and trust someone's word, they're doing a grave disservice to the people in the township that they're supposed to be taking care of. So I would ask that you do vote in favor of this resolution, because just from my point of view as someone on the outside looking in, I know nothing about rural King, but I do know that the job is not getting done for the people in the township. And as close as it is to the election, there's just too much that I see financially, service-wise, that just isn't getting done. And if a dramatic change isn't done, the people are going to be losing out. So, is there any?
And what kind of things what kind of things that need to get done by the trustee have you in particular noticed not getting done?
Well, I used to work in social services, so I'm familiar with how the trustees do poor relief. And considering we were in the middle of COVID with so many, everybody basically home, people needed help, and to not have the trustees be available to provide that help is it's just wrong. If it's nothing else, it's morally wrong. We have a moral obligation to the people in the city, too. And to me, at the worst possible time to not have those services available, it's just not right. We don't do things like that here. I really don't believe we do. So again, I ask you to please consider removal. It's not a good thing. I'm glad it's a long process because it shouldn't be abused. But I believe this case, it's clearly justified. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Doug, you want to outline what's next steps?
Well, you'll have to decide basically on a resolution. I can prepare a draft that'll be pretty easy because the statute says that that the council and the commissioners' sort of summary of reasons has to be identical. So there will be some changes in some whereases in terms of dates of public hearings and whatnot. But so I can circulate a resolution that would be appropriate for the council to consider. You wouldn't take anything further at this meeting, but then you'd have to decide whether to move forward with such a resolution.
Okay. Council?
If we do decide to go forward with this resolution, can you talk about the next steps, so what we know? I know this is a brand-new procedure, so I'm curious to learn more.
Yeah, so, I mean, the next step would be court. I haven't looked at the statute, that piece of it, in a couple of weeks, but if you pass the resolution, your resolution would get filed with the court. It says that the court has to cite the official into court within, I think, 5 days of that. That looks to be in the nature of a preliminary hearing. Within 20 days of either that court appearance or maybe from your filing of the resolution, the court's supposed to hold what it says is a summary hearing, and so that's not really a term of art in litigation, but what it would mean is we're not talking a full jury trial, we're not talking a lot of process in the court. It's a pretty quick and brief hearing by court terms is at least what that means. Be up to the judge a little bit in terms of how much to do. One question I'm trying to work out with the Attorney General's office is who carries that. So there's some language that would suggest maybe it's the county's responsibility to move forward with it. There's some old case law. Like I said, this is an old statute where it talks about it being the state's responsibility. So I think where we are is I've let the Attorney General's office know. They're looking at it. I would regard it as them having what I'd say, a right of first refusal. If they want to control the litigation, they can. The state can. If they don't and the county wants to move forward with it, it's probably up to the commissioners and me, really, to bring it forward in the court. So it's a little ambiguous. We're trying to work that piece of it out.
And Doug, I have a question about the resolution that was shown to us about the removal right away. Will we not vote today to do this?
No, the statute says you have to have a public hearing first, and then you can't move forward with any resolution for at least 10 days. So you could have a special meeting if you wanted to, or there's no deadline after the public hearing for you to do it, so you could do it at your next regular meeting, but you can't do it today. You can't take action today, anyway.
Well, I think we as a board, after everything we've heard today, we should act on it as soon as possible, so we should have this special meeting. Expedite the process as much as possible for all the work that the board, the former employees, the public have put into this. I do not want us to slow the process down.
Any other thoughts from council?
I would support Councilman Richards' statements regarding with the special meeting.
What,
I would support Councilman Richards also on that, in that same vein. What brings me to a point, where is the defense? We've heard the complaint even, which I can't say that one way or another, but I have my own opinion, but where's the defense in this area? So I say we expedite.
Okay, Lisa, did you?
just.
Did
do
you have something?
Yeah, do you have any guidance when we, look, I mean, this obviously isn't a court of law, so, but when we sit there and look at the evidence, or lack of evidence, how we weigh this, do we just, like, what a reasonable person would assume, or how do we, is there any guidance at all, or do we just do what we think makes sense?
Well, I mean, you're looking at the statute and talks about, I guess, this isn't a criminal matter, so it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. I'd say you're looking at preponderance of the evidence as to whether it meets those statutory definitions, and one is making personal use of township funds. And I was surprised, I have not really seen any case law on personal use of funds. So I don't know exactly what the standard is there. On the neglect of duties, the courts have been pretty tough on that. It can't just be you did your duties poorly. It has to be, and they've stopped short of saying that if you do any duties at all, you're free and clear as a public official. But the removal statute cases talk about like just suggesting what would be appropriate. They talk about, well, if the sheriff just closed his office and didn't open it at all, then that might be complete abandonment of duties, and that would be sufficient. But for example, there was a case in 2019 where a clerk treasurer had so many accounting errors, the State Board of Accounts said that you just couldn't list them all. Too many to list, and I think it was in the millions of dollars, but even so, the court found, well, she was doing a lot of her duties, she was just doing them badly, and that's not cause for removal, and so the Court of Appeals said, she can't be removed for that purpose. So you've got to decide whether, on the duty side of it, whether there's been enough to where, this isn't just doing the office badly, it's closer to not doing the job at all.
All right, so I'm hearing preference to have a special meeting. Paula, would you be able to help us on when the meeting room would be available? Okay. What do you think? In a couple of weeks? 10 days is the minimum?
10 days.
Yeah.
10 days. Whatever the statute says we can do.
Yeah, so 10 days would be a week from Friday.
I'd caution against being on the 10th day, because sometimes
Okay.
courts get funny about how you
How
count
you
days.
count days, okay, so maybe
So
the
I'd
first
put it-
part of the following week would
Yeah.
probably be a
The
better,
last week of September?
last week of September,
How about the-
26th,
or the
27th.
27th? 2 weeks from
So,
now? No. Oh, no, not on Friday.
I waved
Yeah.
them off of that day.
How about the Tuesday, the 27th? That's 2 weeks from today? Or 3?
that's 2 weeks from
2 weeks.
today. 2
2 weeks
weeks
from today?
would be the 27th.
27th?
Is that a Thursday?
No, that's
Is it
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
That's an okay date.
Tuesday, the 27th. What time?
Same time,
8:30?
so
8:30?
Tuesday, the 27th at 8:30. Okay. All right. Anything else related to that we need to attend to?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will move on into our budget portion of the meeting. Yeah, we have an actual meeting that we've got to go to now.
Mr. President, would you mind if we took a 5-minute break?
Yes, let's do that. Let's take a 5-minute recess, and then we will reconvene. We are going to reconvene. Thank you all for your indulgence with a little recess.
All right.
So our first item is our resolution for the county surveyor's salary for 2023.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-27-CL, fixing the 2023 salary of the county surveyor.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve Resolution 2022-27-CL for the county surveyor's salary for 2023. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the coroner's salary for 23.
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-28-CL, fixing the 2023 salary of the county coroner.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve Resolution 2022-28-CL, fixing the 2023 salary for the coroner. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the salary schedule for the county assessor for those with and without the level 3 certifications.
Make a motion, we approve resolution number 2022-29-CL, establishing the salary schedule for county assessor with and without level 3 certification.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve Resolution 2022-29-CL, establishing the salary schedule for county assessor's office with and without the level 3 certifications. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the funding for community intellectual disability centers. If I could not stumble over my words.
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-30-CL, confirming funding of community intellectual disability centers.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the Resolution 2022-30-CL, confirming the 2023 funding of community intellectual disability centers. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the confirming for funding of mental health centers.
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-31-CL, confirming funding of community mental health centers.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve Resolution 2022-31-CL, confirming the 2023 funding of community mental health centers. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have our ordinance for the 2023 salaries and grids for the second reading for 2023.
Make a motion, we approve the ordinance number 2022-14-CL, fixing the compensation of all county officers, deputies, and other employees, and fixing the number of deputies and other employees for each county office, department, commission, or agency.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve ordinance 2022-14-CL, fixing the 2023 salaries and grids on the second reading. Roll call.
Underwood,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
Basham,
Aye.
Dullum,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
and Richard.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-14 CL passes 2-0, or 7-0 on second reading.
We're
2-0 on seventh reading.
Yeah, okay. All right, now we have the 2023 county appropriations and tax rates, second reading.
Make a motion, we approve the ordinance resolution for appropriations and tax rates, number 2022-15-CL.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve ordinance 2022-15-CL, which is the approval of our 2023 county appropriations and tax rates on the second reading. Any questions related to all of the changes that we have made over the course of our hearings? Hearing none, roll call.
Vernon,
Aye.
Basham, Dullum,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and Underwood.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-15 CL passes 7-0 on second and final reading.
Okay, now we have the 2023 Tippecanoe solid waste.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2022-16-CL, which is approval of the 2023 Tippecanoe County Solid Waste Management District appropriations and tax rates.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve ordinance 2022-16-CL, which is the approval of the 2023 Tippecanoe solid waste appropriations and tax rates on second reading. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Basham,
Aye.
Dullum,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Underwood,
Aye.
and Vernon.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-16 CL passes 7-0 on second and final reading.
Okay, next we have the approval of Little Weaw Conservancy 2023 budget.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2022-17-CL, the approval of the 2023 Little Weah Conservancy District appropriations and tax rates.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve ordinance 2022-17-CL, which is the approval of the 2023 Little Weaw Conservancy tax rates and appropriations for second reading. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Dullum,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Underwood,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
and Basham.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-17 CL passes 7-0 on second and final reading.
And finally, we have the ordinance for approving the Records Perpetuation Fund.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2022-18-CL, approving the Record Perpetuation Fund for 2023 fund use.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the 2022-18-CL, approving the Records Perpetuation User Fee Fund on second reading. Discussion. Hearing none, or roll call.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard, Underwood,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
Basham,
Aye.
and Dullum.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-18 CL passes 7-0 on second and final reading.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have our consent agenda, which also includes our regular meeting minutes from our August 9th meeting. Any items in the consent agenda that need to be removed for further consideration or discussion? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilman Basham, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that is approved. Next, we have additional appropriations, starting out with Superior Court 6.
I make a motion to approve from the general fund an additional appropriation of $1,000 for jury expense as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dollum, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the general fund additional appropriation for the Superior Court 6 jury fee expense, $1,000. Discussion.
Just that they've had more jury cases than normal this year, up to 8, last time I checked.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the prosecutor.
I move that we approve prosecutor from the ICJI VOCA Fund 8272 for fiscal, for FF23 and FF24 grant appropriation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dolam, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the prosecutor VOCA Fund 8272 for fiscal year 23 and 24 in the amounts presented. Discussion.
This is a grant that just is used to pay for victim advocates for the
Okay.
program.
All right, thank you for that note. If there's no other discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the salary statement.
I make a motion to approve,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry, salary statement 8272 as presented.
Second. Oh,
Can I do both at the same time, or do we have to do them separately?
It'd be all right to do them both together, wouldn't it, Doug? No objections from council.
Okay.
We'll do them both together.
Okay. So salary statement 8272 and salary statement 9252 as presented.
second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Dolam, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the salary statement 8272 fiscal year 23 and 9252 fiscal year 23 as presented. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have Sheriff Misdemeanor Fund 1175 appropriation.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Misdemeanor Fund 1175 appropriation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, a second from Councilman Murray to approve the Sheriff Misdemeanor Fund 1175 appropriation for the amount of $47,991. Discussion.
This is just transferring half of their funds. The sheriff would be here, but he had to go to Ivy Tech because he has to speak to a class, but Terry is here if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Terry or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the Misdemeanor Fund 1175 appropriation for community corrections, and I'll give the motion and then we'll go from there.
I'll make a motion, we approve the Community Corrections Misdemeanor Fund 1175 in the amount of $47,992.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilman Hamilton to approve the additional, or the appropriation for the Misdemeanor Fund 1175 for community corrections in the amount of $42,992. And there's one note that, Bob, I think you wanted to make sure we were aware of.
This is as minute as you could ever imagine, but, I mean, the two together, and you can see what Kelly's got at the bottom there, the two appropriations are 15 cents more than what the revenue was, and I don't know if you want to move that back $1 or just...
So if we move it back to the 991, which matches the sheriff's amount, then we're
going to have 85 cents
We'll have
to
yeah.
fight over later.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit to fight over later.
For
but
additional appropriations.
At least we're not going to be above the amount that's totally available.
I'll arm wrestle Bob for that.
Okay.
At least it's not me. I will amend my original motion to make it $47,991.
Is that okay with you,
Second,
Jody?
yes.
Okay. All right, so we will make it the 991 as instead of the 992, if that's okay. Motioner and second has agreed to that. Is there any other discussion? Kelly, did you want anything in particular related to this?
No, we just appropriate these funds for our vehicle leases.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next we have Fund 9178 appropriation for community corrections.
Make a motion, we approve the Gateway to Hope Fund 9178 in the amount of $5,850.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the Gateway to Hope Fund 9178 appropriation in the amount of $5,850. Discussion.
We partner with the Health Department through Tippecanoe County for peer recovery coaches. We usually have 2 of them that come down periodically and meet with our participants to help guide them through some recovery issues that they have.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have an additional appropriation for the coroner.
I'll make a motion that we approve the general fund appropriation for the coroner as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Vernon, second from Councilman Murray, to approve the general fund additional appropriation in the amount of $66,913. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is just for deputy pay. We're continuing to see an increase in caseload, about 18% than what we anticipated, along with having to do autopsies on the necessary cases.
Okay. Any questions from council?
So this is just additional hours for the existing deputies?
Yeah, we're running out of money for the end of the year, so when we have
Because they're
more
working
cases.
more hours?
Yes.
Okay.
It's by case and call, so.
Yeah, there's more cases than what we had budgeted for. And
Yes.
so this is to get her, fingers crossed, hopefully through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have grant appropriation for the surveyor.
Mr. President, I'd move that we accept the grant from Indiana American Water Charitable Foundation funding to continue the floating classroom on the Wabash River that allows our next generation to be equipped with proper environmental education.
Yes. John came up with
Next
that
pattern.
completely on his own. All right, was that you, Barry? Okay, I'm sorry. We have a motion on the floor from Councilman Basham, a second from Councilman Richard, to approve the Indiana American Water Grant Fund 9146 grant appropriation for $10,000. Discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, John. I don't know if that's on. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, John. That was a very good description. So just real quick, this is a grant my office did receive. Monica Christopher, who is the stormwater educator for the Tippecanoe County Partnership for Water Quality, applied for this grant. The monies will be, and we obviously were awarded it. The monies will be used to offset supplies and equipment costs, as John mentioned, for the Wonders on the Wabash program, and then also any other teaching and educational events throughout the year. So I would respectfully request approval.
Okay. All right, thank you, Zach. Any other discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Grant Fund 4118 appropriation for the Health Department.
Make a motion, we approve donation fund 4118 in the amount of $4,175.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the donation fund 4118 appropriation in the amount of $4,175. Discussion. Welcome, Amy.
This just covers office supplies. Gateway to Hope got a $200 survey money back, and then the rest is for the food, for our community food day that we're having.
Okay. Any questions or discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have the Fund 9178, grant appropriation for the Health Department.
Make a motion, we approve the Gateway to Hope Fund 9178 in the amount of $7,313.
Second?
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the grant appropriation Gateway to Hope 9178 for $77,313. Discussion.
This is just to assist Grace in our Gateway to Hope program, so.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you very much. Next, we have Auditor Rainy Day appropriation.
Mr. President, I'd move that we would make the transfer in the Auditor's Department on Fund 1186 for a total dollar amount of $461,454.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Basham, a second from Councilman Richard, to approve the Rainy Day Fund 1186 appropriation in the amount of $461,454. Discussion.
What the situation we have here is, when we did the 2022 budget, we approved the appropriation to pay the amount of debt service in 2022. Now that I understand that we needed to include the 2023, which didn't really make sense to me. But anyway, where we're at here now, because then the state did lower our levy for the bot. And so right now, we have got a negative balance in there because we didn't get as much money in property taxes as what we thought a year ago when we were doing the budgets. So we have a couple options here. We can either move money from the rainy day fund, because I've got a cash situation here, but we can either move money from the rainy day fund and put it into there, or we can just leave it alone, and right now it has a negative cash balance. By the time we get to the end of 2022, we're going to have settlement done, and then it will be a positive number by the we get to the end of the year. But we're going to kind of run into this situation every year, and not, because now we're going to be, taking track of two installments, but we're going to be negative cash. So this is one way of taking care of it right now, that we won't run into it in the future, and I don't really have any other options except for rainy day. If you understand what I'm saying, it's... And we may be able to move a little bit of money from the bot. If there's some extra money in there at the end of the year, we may be able to put some back in rainy day over the course of the next number of years, but it'll take a while to get back $460,000. Luckily, we didn't need as much as we could have, because we had some money left over from the jail lease that we did use that to put into this fund as well, into the bot fund.
Okay, any questions or comments from council or further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next, we have two or three resolutions, or a couple of resolutions and another ordinance. So the resolution creating county offender transportation and state share compact. So do I have a motion for that one?
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2022-32-CL, creating the County Offender Transportation and State Share Interstate Compact Application Fee Funds.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve the Resolution 2022-32-CL, creating the County Offender Transportation and State Share Interstate Compact Application Fee Fund. That's a mouthful. Discussion.
This really isn't anything different than what we've done before, and maybe Doug can answer this. I was hoping Dave or Kirby be here to answer this, but we really just need to create a fund that we didn't have before. We did it through, at least we did through their user fee funds, I believe, is where we did this previously, but the state's saying we need to have this fund created.
Yeah, that's basically it. There's a fee in these situations, it's $125, and it gets split two ways, and I think the auditor's office was just taking it in and splitting it and sending it where it's supposed to go, and the state said, well, no, you got to have a county fund that tracks with this, and then it seemed like, well, we should also have a fund for the state share, and so it's bureaucracy at its finest.
Okay. All right. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Next, we have approving the Sheriff Commissary Fund.
Make a motion, we approve resolution number 2022-34-CL, approving the sheriff commissary fund expenditures.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the resolution 2022-34-CL for the Sheriff Commissary Fund expenditures.
So this is a resolution that amends your, well, I don't know if you recall, but commissary set up, so there's sort of two types of expenditures. One is statutory, says commissary funds can be used for, I think we have it up here, 8 different things. And then it can also be used for anything that the sheriff and the council mutually agree upon. And we have this in place for everything except for, you'll see on the back page, there were already 20 different things that the council and the sheriff had agreed this could be used on. The sheriff wants to pay for job-related mental health services and was thinking commissary might be a good spot to spend that from, and they took a look and it didn't fit in any of the existing buckets. So what this is doing is adding number 21 to the agreed-upon expenses to add expenses for contracting professionals to provide job-related mental health services for employees of the sheriff's department.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion from council?
This commissary fund, how is money put in there? Where's it? Is that the pop machines and food and all that stuff? Or is there a fund like that, or that where that revenue goes?
It's based on what the inmates purchase.
From the inmates.
Oh,
Terry, do you want to address that?
got it.
Revenue generated for.
Hit the red button for the, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not a red button.
commissary revenue is generated by the inmates, the purchasing of commissary items, candy,
Okay,
snacks,
that was close.
toiletries, those kind of items.
Okay.
Can you talk, what do you mean by job-related mental health services? What, as opposed to just mental health services?
Yeah, on number 21, that's something the sheriff had originally tried to have enacted to cover all of public safety in Tippecanoe County. And there were some issues that arose on confidentiality of the mental health services and identifying specifically who those persons were so that payment could be made for the mental health services. And so that kind of fell to the wayside. So now the sheriff is requesting that commissary expenditures be used for the same mental health through Dr. Dardenia, who's a mental health specialist.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Next, we have the amending of the Sheriff's Department fee schedule. Oh, yeah, you might need to be here. I don't know, Terry, if there's going to be much discussion. So we have ordinance for that.
Make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2022-19-CL, amending the Tippecanoe County Code, amending section 34.27, which is the Sheriff's Department fee schedule.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton to approve the ordinance 2022-19-CL, amending the Sheriff's Department fee schedule. Discussion.
Yeah, this one, the legislature changed a section having to do with fees for sheriff sales. It was limited to $200. It was moved up to $300. The statute itself says that the fee is set by the sheriff, but we actually had this provision in our county code ordinance passed by the council in the list of fees, setting it at $200. So I told them, well, if you want to change that, you got to go through the council. So this amends the administrative fee for mortgage foreclosure proceedings and raises that fee up to $300, which is consistent with the statute because SRI is raising its fees in response to the statutory changes. And then on top of that, when I was looking at the statute, as we're amending this department fee schedule, I noticed that there's, in that same section, there's a list of fees for handgun permit processing, and the legislature said you can't charge those anymore. In fact, you don't even have handgun permits anymore. So we better not pass an amendment to the section that includes those fees. So you'll see that those handgun permit fees are stricken out.
But we still have people coming down to the sheriff's office. They still want to get the handgun licenses just because they feel like an obligation that, you know, it was always done in the
I think
past.
there's also like interstate, there's some reciprocity advantages.
Yes, when you leave Indiana and go to another state, that's best to have that with you. And of course, you know, we don't collect any funding for those handgun permits anymore, so.
Okay.
And then just as an administrative matter, I know that they're trying to get an updated contract with SRI. You know, it's up to you whether you want to take this through 2 different readings because it's just sprung on you, but if it doesn't seem to be objectionable, you could pass it on second reading with unanimous consent.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Underwood,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
Basham,
Aye.
Dolam.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-19 CO passes 7-0 on first reading.
Do we need to make a motion to suspend the rules and go ahead and do it on second? Okay.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and go ahead and do a second reading today.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to suspend the rules and go ahead and proceed with second reading today. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is approved. I'll take a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance on the second reading.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor from Councilman Murray, a second from Councilwoman Hamilton, to approve ordinance 2022-19-CL, amending the Sheriff's Department fee schedule on second reading. Further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Murray,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Underwood,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
Basham,
Aye.
Dullum,
Aye.
Hamilton.
Aye.
Ordinance 2022-19 CL passes 7-0 on second and final reading.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we have committee reports. Don't have any of those. Other business, just a reminder about our November meeting date being on the 15th, not the 8th, and unfinished or new business.
One quick little note, I'm going to pass these down for signatures. There's some things that need to have 2 signatures. There is a first and second reading. Some of the first readings, we couldn't have them signed because the numbers have changed.
Okay, so we've got bunches of things to sign. Commissioner FYI, you have nothing. Wow. Amazing. Public comment.
November 15th.
Tuesday.
If not, remember we have our special meeting coming up 2 weeks from this morning on the 27th. If there's nothing else, I'll take the, oh yes. And To commemorate Bob's last budget hearings with us, we have some cupcakes here with 2023 on them for the 2023 budget. So I don't know if Bob will let anybody else partake in his cupcakes, but we wanted to say a special thank you to Bob for helping us guide us through the budget process once again. So, yes, I think.
Thank you. Budgets are fun, and I told Kevin we brought those in, I think you were expecting this meeting to go until 2023.
We got a whole lot closer to 2023 than when we began the morning. Anything else? If not, I'll take the final motion.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.